Hey guys, I'm Danny.
And I'm EJ, and this is the Your Living Proof podcast,
where we talk about addiction and how it affects the family, from the brutal to the beautiful and everything in between. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Your Living Proof podcast.
We love to see it. I wish you guys could see Danny today. Go to YouTube so you can see him.
Go see my, actually we were just arguing. I look old. And she's like, don't tell me about that. And I was like, well, I usually don't look old. I don't know why today I do, but.
Forever young.
Forever young. We have this argument all the time. Like men get to age, women don't, right? Isn't that your argument?
Oh, it's not an argument. It's just the truth.
What? I guess when you do get gray hair, you get a little bit more refined.
Culturally, men are applauded when they age, and women have to be embalmed when they're 30 and just try to hold still.
It's an interesting time in life right now. We're both adjusting to some new stages of life, and we're also resisting them. But thank you for coming back. This is episode 89, man. We're getting there.
It's awesome.
Getting close to number 100. What are we going to do on number 100?
I don't know. Throw a party?
Do it from the top of a mountain?
I guess.
That would be
it would
sweet.
be really loud and cold, but.
We have a really important topic today. Really, it's probably like the number one most important thing if you're trying to help someone who's suffering from an addiction.
100%. It's the thing that everyone is like, I can't get it right. I can't do it.
No, they can't, but you have to. And so we're going to talk about it. Before we do, though, something crazy happened in our community just this week.
Oh my gosh. It shooketh me. Okay.
Whoa.
I mean
Is that
that.
a word, like a biblical word?
Yeah, it shooketh me. And I mean that. Like, Danny was like, are you okay? And I'm like, actually, I'm not.
No, I will. Let me fast forward because it's been a couple days now and she's still not okay.
Yeah,
like
I'm just not. Danny keeps thinking it's affecting him and his sex life because I have been affected by this. So he's like really wanting me to get over it.
I have some selfish needs right now.
But the thing is I'll just tell you. So this brave, amazing woman was, I don't know, told by or observed some things in the community, which was 40 to 50 men going into the same, quote, massage parlor right in the heart of Lehi, Utah.
Which looks like the Brady Bunch. Like if you're not from Utah and you don't know where Lehi is.
Well, just yeah. If you Google what's the safest city in America to live, Lehi, Utah is in the top 10. So just there you go. So it's in the top 10 safest cities. Although there's a sex trafficking ring going on right before our eyes there. So she found out that there's all these men going to this place.
A massage parlor.
Massage parlor, quote,
That's
unquote.
the cover.
And she goes to confront them as they walk in. And she filmed, like, catching all of these men going into this place. And I'll tell you, she knew the conditions. She had gone and she had seen the conditions that the girls working there were living in. They lived there. They didn't have a shower. They had no beds. And this is where they lived and serviced all these men that were coming in by the drove, starting at 8 a.m. every day of the week, I think, except Sunday. So she would catch them and confront them, and they would literally be like stunned that someone would confront them.
I want to talk on that when you're done. Yeah.
They would be stunned and be in denial and be like, oh no. This is just a regular. I just came in for a sports massage, and this is this is guys in their 30s and guys in their 60s.
Not one of these guys
wearing wedding rings. This
is what's funny is everyone's like, oh my gosh, like they all look like such normal people.
They did. They look like your next door neighbor.
That's the worst problem with this addiction.
That's why it shook me to my core. Was I'm like, wait a minute.
That could have been my dad. That could have been my neighbor.
Yes, and she was calling them out saying, you know that these girls are not okay, right? You know the conditions they're living in. You know what you're doing. She would even say, you know that you're participating and supporting sex trafficking, right? And they would even admit, yeah. And they would still go in. I can't.
Can I jump in? So she did this. This was just a normal person. She had her, on her Instagram page. She had maybe 800 followers, which, by the way, within 24 hours, it was up to like what?
10.
No.
She had 10,000.
It got up to
overnight.
12.
I'm sure, but overnight she had 10.
Yeah, overnight. Anyway, it caught fire, and people started seeing this. Now, there was all sorts of feelings and emotions around it.
Yes.
Right? Her page obviously got flagged. It got put as private page only. The content was pulled down.
Well, it's because she actually got, she talked to one of the guys who was panicking about her posting this and being caught. And so she said, okay, I won't post yours if you tell me how you got this information. How did you get here? And he basically led her to 4 or 5 different websites. Bedspace was one of them, that you would go there and it would describe all these sexual acts that these girls were willing to do. And when you clicked on them, it took you to their profiles, which is these underage girls wearing nothing, like it was porn. And that was like their grab, right? Like that was their advertisement for this massage. And so she posted some of their profiles on her Instagram story, and Instagram immediately flagged it, which should tell you how horrible it was.
Well, some of you may have seen this because it did the news caught onto it.
Yes.
And there were several different organizations in Utah that caught onto it, Our Rescue and a few others that, they did show it on their page. You didn't see that?
I didn't.
Yeah, they posted about it, what happened in Lehi. So a lot of things transpired. They found out that there were dozens of these facilities. There's other companies doing the same thing. The reason why this one was just, I guess when she said it shook her, is just because of how raw it was. And she was catching these men before the act instead of like after or during. And she would go up to him. And here's the part. I know there's mixed feelings about this. Some people are like, that's so rude to post, like to video them and post it.
Yeah, yeah.
I get the argument. There's other people that are like, no, expose them, hang them from a noose. Like, right? There's a range of emotions. When I saw it, the most alarming thing in my profession is when people develop this disease of addiction. Now, all of these men walking in there doing these heinous things, where did it start?
Porn.
In their basement by themselves, hurting no one. It was a secret no one knew about. Every addiction's progressive. Every addiction, whether it's to illicit drugs or alcohol or porn, every addiction is progressive. So eventually the porn doesn't do it enough for them and they seek more. The real thing.
Yeah, they have to act it out.
In the actual act of going to these places, they know how wrong it is, but there's this thrill, there's this excitement, and there's a pull, right?
Yeah.
When you go to shoot up heroin, when you go to drink a bottle, there's this gravitational pull when you have the disease of addiction that's just pulling you towards it. Even though you know it's wrong, there might be consequences, there could be repercussions, it just pulls you in. And I watched all of these men get pulled in. And someone, this is why these videos were so amazing, she interrupted it. Mm-hmm. She interrupted that pull. Right before the pull gave them what they needed or wanted, she stepped in. What are you doing here?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you going in that door for? Don't lie to me. What are you here for? And if you go back and watch them, all the videos have been taken down. But these men, all walks of life, all looking like your brother, your father, their eyes immediately enlarged. And it was almost like you could see this, like instantly just almost like, I don't know. It's crazy because to me, it's almost like these walking zombies that are headed into this building, driven by the disease they've created in their brain from the years of porn consumption. Yeah. And immediately someone steps in and it's almost like, I don't know what I'm doing here. It's almost like they're under this spell, right? And then as soon as this person catches them, it is crazy. So we just wanted to talk about that because it was pertinent. And more in this line of work, I realize the number one driving force that pushes people into substance abuse or these sexual addictions, porn, it's out of control.
Yeah.
So it's this brewing storm everywhere. And now people are just starting to catch on to it. But even when they do, the stigma around this addiction is so strong that people can't watch it. No. Or if they do, it's just sickening, right?
Yeah.
We've got to a point as a society, if you find out your son's doing drugs, even if they're smoking meth, I mean, it hurts. It's like getting kicked in the gut. But we move forward.
Yeah.
With this one, it's just like, it's so disgusting that people can't.
Yeah.
That is one of the unique things about it, makes it so hard. So we'll talk more on that later.
Yep.
So let's get into today while you're here. You're trying to get some tools and guidance and some legitimate resources to help your loved one.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about the number one. If you love someone, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a child dealing with an addiction, there's a certain way that you need to learn to speak to the disease. Please stop thinking or trying to speak to this person you know, to your loved one. Now, if you caught them in the act during the first month or two of this bad behavior, you might be speaking to them. Might be a behavior issue. No one ever catches them then. It always is down the road. It's progressed. It's turned into an illness, a disease of the brain. So you need to learn to speak to that instead of your loved one.
Yes, and how do you do that?
We did it on a recent episode. I hope you go back and listen to it, Why Your Words Don't Matter. The way you speak to the disease of addiction is putting together a plan first, right? Having some family unity, but it is through boundaries. So today we are talking about boundaries. It's the number one thing. And it's what everyone tries to do, but everyone fails at doing. What is the difference between a boundary and a request? That's what we're going to identify today.
Yes. Because that's what everyone struggles with the most.
If you're trying to help a loved one, right? You can see the ship is sinking. Your loved one's going down. You're trying to help them. Most likely what you've been doing is throwing out requests.
100%.
Instead of boundaries. So let's just understand the difference between the two. First of all, this is the number one thing that you can learn to do to have an impact on your loved one's addiction.
And have an impact on your own life.
Yeah. And the way we want to talk about this isn't from a clinical approach of boundaries. I mean, you can go look into that your own or read a book. It's the actionable way. Like, what's the actionable way to help change the outcome?
Which is so awesome.
Yep.
We're
But this is when you break it all down. If we're trying to prevent your loved one from dying from this disease or something unfortunate happening to them, this is it.
Yes.
This is the number one thing that we can do, that you can do, right? We can't control everything. Heck, we can't control very much at all right now. But this is. So let's get into it. Let's
talk about what are boundaries. Because everyone throws the word around, but I just want to be really clear on what actually is a boundary. And a boundary refers to the limits or the rules that we set to protect our physical and emotional well-being. So it's something that we set for ourselves. And it defines what we deem as acceptable or unacceptable for us in terms of how others treat us. What do we tolerate? We're teaching people what we tolerate by the boundaries that we set. So an example could be, have you ever been around someone where you're like, I don't say swear words around them ever. Even the tiny ones. My dad's one of them. I can't say ass. I can't.
You just did.
Yeah. But he'd be like, oh, I don't tolerate that. People in my world don't use those words. It's a boundary he set.
And you respect it.
Totally respect it. 100%. So a boundary is just something that you choose to decide what you accept in your life and what you don't.
Okay, so
most people feel like they're really selfish when they set boundaries.
Is that what you had to say? Are you done?
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
I want to talk about requests. I don't want to cut you off. I do that sometimes.
It's okay. I'm done.
It might affect me getting lucky later on.
It will.
I don't ever want to cut you off. Anyway, we'll get back. Requests. So requests, I wrote this down. Requests, on the other hand, are what we ask for from others. They are a way to communicate our desires, preferences, or needs in the hope that the other party will consider and potentially accommodate them. Making a reasonable
potentially.
Yes, thank you.
Making
a reasonable request could involve asking someone to help on a project or asking your partner to do something or requesting a deadline. Action from someone.
Yeah.
So there's a difference here, and I really want to make it known because I'm not going to say most. Everyone who loves someone in addiction eventually starts making requests. You better do this or else. I hope you can see what this is doing to your life and our life, so you better do this. Mm-hmm. You need to go do this. You better figure out how to go do this.
Yep.
It has not gotten you anywhere. I know you've tried it. That's what I spend most of my time is speaking to these people who for so long have exhausted themselves. And these are amazing people just like you who've exhausted themselves with all of these requests. Sometimes the requests were backed with anger. Sometimes they were backed with love and desperation, but they were requests. So let's talk about the difference.
Well, so I think the most important thing for you to understand as a key difference is a boundary is something you set for yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else does because you have set this boundary on, and it's your terms. You set the terms and conditions of the boundary. A request is something you're asking of someone else, and it has everything to do with their choices. So you're leaving it up to them. You're like basically saying, I'd love to see this, but it's up to you. And a boundary is, hey, this is what I'm willing to accept. So whether or not you do it determines whether or not we move forward, in our relationship or whatever. So it's really different in that one is leaving it all up to you and the other one is leaving it up to the person. And you can see how in a relationship with someone who is in active addiction, how making a request is a really silly thing to do. Because someone who has absolutely no control of their agency anymore simply cannot take a request that isn't from their drug of choice.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
When you were saying this, I just was thinking about myself. And it's hard to remember the total dysfunction of when I was deep in my addiction. Why? Because it was almost like this haze. I was like we talked about earlier, I was under this spell.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was a walking zombie driven by my disease. When people made requests, I think another word that's good too is threats. When people made threats or requests,
Yeah.
it fed the addiction. Why? Because the disease in my brain needed something so bad that it was almost like life was a game. Keeping track of all your lies, easily manipulating people around you, pinning people against them, causing chaos in their life to distract them from you. I mean, it's like this game that the disease plays for no other reason than to survive. So
Right.
it can keep getting what it needs. So when people made requests, it almost fueled the dysfunction caused by my illness because it was like a game.
Yeah.
Like even if it was like giving them false hope that I was just around the corner of the next, a big change in life, or threatening that they took action, they'd never see me again. That was it. It wasn't until my family, and many of you have heard me say this, my addiction of many years came to a halt in a matter of many months when my family united and came together and did this. And guess what they did? They got taught by a coach at the facility where I ended up going to about how to set boundaries. Because for so long, all their intentions, and rightfully so, were to just get me to do what I needed to do. And eventually they did what they needed to do. And it was for the first time. I remember very specifically a few times reaching out for something I needed, trying to call and manipulate money out of my dad or calling one of my, and it changed. And it's because now they were doing things and putting boundaries in place for themselves.
Well,
I didn't even recognize what was happening. I just felt the difference.
Well, I think that's so, so powerful. And I think it's so important for you. If you're listening to this and you're going, oh, okay, think of what he just shared. They took the power out of Danny's hands and took it back into their hands. No longer were they saying, if this feels right to you, if you're ready to make a change, this is what we'd like to see. We would like it if you didn't drink in our house. We would like it if you didn't go snort cocaine on our toilet. We would love to know that you aren't high when you come here. No, they just straight up said, you can't come here because you are using and we know you're using. So as much as we'd love to see you, we unfortunately can't until you choose to enter a program of recovery.
Well, and
very different tone, right?
Very different. And please let me remind you, this isn't speaking just about myself, but it was true for myself and anyone. Addiction, I hope, becomes all-encompassing. I don't care if it's prescription medication, pornography, alcohol, gambling. It's funny because we always get people who message us on social media when we say something about a certain, aspect of addiction.
Yeah.
That, oh, this one's worse, or it's not as bad as this one. Poison. I wish people would just start using the right word.
Gambling, food, porn,
whatever
cocaine.
The poison is, okay? It cannot survive without two things. First of all, someone or something to blame it on. You have to have someone or something to blame it on. And that will evolve and change, right?
Yeah.
You've seen them blame it on certain things or certain people, and then all of a sudden it's the next certain thing or certain people. And then the second thing is, for someone close to them to be willing to continue being abused by it. So those are the two things that require someone or something to blame, and then someone who's willing to continue being abused by it. So what you just shared is powerful. It's how we take the power back.
Yeah, well, it's you're being abused because you're making requests. You're not holding boundaries.
Requests are a total waste of time. Please go back and listen. I was looking at my notes. Episode 84, Why Your Words Don't Matter. And
Yes.
It's kind of a bold topic. It's not to offend you, but no matter how you articulate it, however you present these requests, how many times you present these requests, when the person with the disease hears that, it has no effect.
Yeah.
But you see your person, and that's why you continually keep trying, is you're trying to speak to them.
Yep.
Stop speaking to them and think about the disease that they have and speak to it.
Yeah. Boundaries cannot be manipulated. That's why addicts hate when you put them in place, and why they will sabotage you when you do, because it's so threatening. Because boundaries can't be manipulated. Remember, that's what they thrive on, is being able to manipulate, just like Danny was just saying, playing on other people and their fears and what they have to offer. But boundaries can't be manipulated. So when you set them, just buckle up, because they will throw everything at you to try to get you to say, okay, never mind. We would just like it if you would do this, right? Because they need you to be terrified of whatever it is that they're going to die, that you're never going to see them again, so that they can get what they need in that moment.
And here's the kicker. Most of you listening are amazing people. You're successful, educated, makes sense. Okay. Here's the pill that's hard to swallow. No one, I've yet to see it or even hear about it, of someone who's successful at holding boundaries now, if you're talking about a relationship thing, a normal, with just the regular dysfunction, maybe a relationship with a child or a coworker, you've probably acquired boundaries, put them in place, and experienced a change.
Sure.
We're talking about specifically the boundaries pertaining to the addiction of someone you love. I've never seen anyone do it by themselves. I've seen everyone attempt.
Yeah.
That is exactly why we created this program. This is a family recovery program. This is to educate you, help you recognize what your role is and isn't, give you tactical insight of how to move forward, how to get them help logistically, all that stuff. But what your boundaries are predicated on. Our entire program is built on the presenting of a gift. Mm-hmm. Now, there's the gift for your loved one. That's the whole roadmap. That's what we help people figure out. All the logistics. That's what they want to do, is check all those boxes, right? Here's what we have to do. Here's what we do after. Here's how we pay for it. Here's how we get insurance, yada, yada. The other side of the gift is the constant nourishment from support through a community, support through me, through all the tools and resources we provide to be able to keep those boundaries. Because I mean, just this week, I spoke to like a naval officer. I spoke to a person with 2 doctorates who's just writing a book, and their loved one is ragdolling them. Mm-hmm. They understand. They've done this. They see this. They know how to move forward, but they're ragdolled by love. No one can put boundaries in place pertaining to the disease of addiction and keep them on their own. You've got to find yourself community support, professional help, for multiple reasons. First of all, what are good, healthy boundaries? Mm-hmm. Putting them in place and what to expect when you do. Mm-hmm. How to keep them, because nothing. You can have a stubborn spouse. I have so many challenges. Like, I'm so stubborn to her and break her down all the time. But thankfully, we're like normal human stuff. But when someone you love has a disease, they will manipulate you. They will twist it. They will break it down. They will instill fear in you like you've never felt before. You cave. And if you don't cave, your boundary doesn't disappear. What does it do? It'll just bend.
Yep.
Everybody who does this, and even if you're successful for a minute, you will backtrack. So if you're right there, this is the pinnacle of this whole episode. If you're right there and you've done this, but you caved, and all of a sudden these boundaries and the failures of them have turned into months and years, and you're like, this isn't going to stop. It can. We have tons of testimonies about it. And guess what? Here's the truth. A lot of these people were really successful at getting their loved one into treatment. Others have not had that outcome. They're still waiting, but their boundaries have now provided peace in their life, given them the power back. And hopefully their loved one accepts it sooner or later. Everyone tries to do this on their own. I think listening to this, it even makes sense. Where the transformation happens and people actually get to experience the beauty that comes from this is when they get help, professional help, constant education, support, reassurance, and nurturing and love through a community.
I think that is the most beautiful thing to experience for me. Danny facilitates these amazing calls. Okay, so once you enroll into our program, if you choose to join our private community and get to be on these weekly support calls, the calls themselves are like the most transformational, nurturing, like you're saying, calls, because you can hear them working through those fears, right, together.
Well, and there's enough people that are doing it that other people see it, because there's an alternative to this, like Al-Anon.
Right.
And like in our faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have family services, addiction recovery family services. These are amazing. They're great groups of support, but there's volunteers that are going there, and everyone's kind of just talking about the trauma they've experienced.
Yeah. This is like...
And it's a great place to be heard, right?
Oh, sure. No, there's no harm for sure, no harm.
The benefit of a private program is it's driven by action. It's driven to change. So there will be comfort. There will be understanding to make you feel like you're heard and seen and understood. But it's not even what's being taught. It's watching the other people take the leap of faith to put these boundaries in place that seem so impossible and scary, and to see what happens. I think you benefit just as much of getting these real live, up-to-date examples from other people of when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or when it does work. It's transformative.
Yeah. And I think listening to these women, even in between support groups, because there's just a few a week, and then in between, they will update each other on happenings like, okay, I just did this. I'm terrified. I just need you guys to know that this is where I am and this is the space I'm in and I need some support. And it just floods in. And it is, I don't know. I can't say enough about it. It makes me cry because all of these people that have been so isolated for so long, some of them years, all of a sudden in their most terrified moments, these angels surround them with their words and their love and their actual prayers. And it is incredible because it gives them that little push of strength they need to go, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold this boundary.
Yep.
And if you want to hear more about that, I did interview one of the women in our program.
Yeah, and you have another experience too. Like
yes,
you should,
and I want to share that. So if you go back a few episodes, I interviewed someone that is currently in our program talking about her experience. You should listen to it because it's incredible. But we have a private just community that everyone enrolled gets to kind of interact with each other, and they can exchange their phone numbers and whatever and do their own little things.
And they share their challenges and successes.
But it's a daily thing. I mean, they're talking daily. And I wanted to read something that came from one of these women this week because it just kind of shows the power of helping someone in this space. And she said, after 7 long weeks of being out of my home, my husband finally decided to check himself into detox last week, and I just found out that he has now moved to rehab. There's no way I could have been able to do it. There's no way I could have been able to last this long or to have the confidence to know exactly what he needed in order to have the highest chance of long-term success in recovery if it weren't for this program. I am so grateful and I feel so empowered. I love you all.
Yeah, I got to work really closely with her, and I know who that is because we had this talk the other day. Here's what's really cool. She did this for a long time before she had any success, and so she knew. But still, even when she came to the conviction and fortitude of what needed to happen and she did it, after a period of time passes, they start going, oh, well, maybe. They start to question, doubt, wonder. Every week, she got constant reminders of, no, you hold the line. This is the only way out of this. And so that is what was transformative for her. And I will tell you the part she left out in there, pretty awesome. He got into detox. He was there for just a couple of days. And in detox, if you don't know how it works, people are coming and going all the time. A lot of people go to detox 12 or 13 times before they even go to treatment. They just go to get stable. And there's usually good like behavioral health workers there, mental health workers there. And this sweet therapist that probably met with him 2 or 3 times in the 3 days he was there. Again, you're meeting someone at their worst, right? You think they're bad when they're drunk.
Yeah.
Go ahead, and this man's situation, they take the alcohol from him. He's sick. I mean, and volatile and exposed and agitated. So talking to this therapist, he had convinced the therapist that he needed to get to work, right? Like, I got bills to pay. Obviously, I put myself in a bad situation. I just need to get back to work. I don't have time to go to treatment. So the therapist calls her, and he's like, okay, I just want you to know that we're releasing your husband. And the recommendation is that he's going to come home and he's going to go to a meeting or 2 a week.
Oh, my gosh.
And she's like, okay, well, thank you for sharing that, but that's not going to work for me. And here's why. I've been in a program of recovery for quite some time now. I've actually learned about the disease he has. And I've actually taken an opportunity to look at myself, to realize how I've been affected, to realize the lies that I've believed and how I've been beaten down to where I believed some of these lies. But actually now I clearly understand. I clearly understand what he needs to get healthy. And you know what? It's a long road ahead that's going to require a lot of my sacrifice. I've already kind of played through that. I'm going to help with this and this while he's in treatment. I'm going to help with our business, our bills, all the things in our life. I'm going to be there to help support him emotionally and financially. I know it's going to take him some time, and I'm going to support him while he gets the help he needs. So no, I'm ready. I'm ready. And I know what it's going to take for him to get healthy. So she pushed this back, and the therapist is like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you're actually right. Like, if he really wants a chance, that's the things that he should do.
It's so amazing.
So listen, it's a crazy situation. There's no greater resource than you, but you've got to learn, first of all, and then have the constant. That's the thing. There's a woman in our program. I can share her name, Stephanie. She's amazing. She shares with everybody all the time. The only way you can get to this place and stay here is when you continue to stay connected.
Yeah.
The second that you take your hand off, you're going to fall back into all the lies and things that you've believed all along the way.
And we didn't share this, but we had a retreat, living proof retreat.
We need to talk about that at some
and
point.
We'll talk about it at length, another episode. But I did want to share one thing that was shared, which just...
So she meant retreat. We went with some members, some amazing members, had a place up in Island Park, Idaho, yep. Beautiful cabin. They provided for everyone to come, and there was a dozen or more members of the program that came to meet each other in person. It was cool.
It was so cool. And this was the quote that I will never forget that was said in one of our breakout sessions, and it was, the changes within us, this was a couple, are the miracle. And I just thought, wow, that is incredible that they can even see that right now. Like, the changes that occurred within their relationship were the miracle so far. And they're still waiting on their loved one to get completely healthy, but they could recognize that they are now the changed ones and the way they respond to this addiction. So
everyone knows my addiction took me to death's doorstep. Probably should have or could have died on multiple occasions. Had I, it would have been instant agony and suffering looking back at the wreckage that I'd caused around me. That's what fuels me to continue to do this line of work. It's hard to try to go and get a family to work on themselves, but it is what changes everything. When my family did that, it saved my life. But I also know that had they not done it, and I did die from this terrible disease, I would have instantly been able to look back and go, oh my gosh, the worst part of all of this is that I drove a wedge between my parents, that I caused resentments between my siblings and my parents because of what I did. I wasn't even aware it was happening. Mm-mm. That's why the miracle is, that's the miracle, is you get to reestablish and reunite as a family. And by doing that, that's how you actually give them their greatest chance.
So amazing. So I just want to say, if you're like the most efficient, amazing, professional person on earth, which I guarantee you are, that you can just set that aside and know that means nothing to addiction. It is a monster that will chew you up and spit you out. It would chew up anyone. And it has, and you can see it. And so that is why learning, not just, I know I need to have boundaries, learning how to hold a boundary in the face of the portals of hell that open from your loved one, that is what will be required to make it out of this thing.
Well, the last thing I have to say is everyone in our program is amazing. They're super educated, talented people.
So
but guess
amazing.
what? What you just said, how does that happen? And why is this so uniquely difficult? Because of love.
Yep.
Anytime we were talking about someone, if it was your nephew, it was your neighbor, it was your coworker's son or daughter, you would see this with a different lens.
Yep. And you would respond to it totally different.
There's someone I'm working with right now who has like a program in California. She does counseling, family counseling, especially relationships between adolescents and parents. Most intelligent person. Mm-hmm. Dealing with a loved one in this addiction, you see it differently. You're impeded by differently. You're manipulated in a different way. So just stop doing it alone. That's it.
Yep.
Just reach out, get some help. It will change everything.
That's right. I'm going to do the serenity prayer. Is
Please.
that okay? We'll close with a serenity prayer for families. God, grant me the serenity to accept that I cannot change other people, the courage to change the person that I can, and the wisdom to know that it is me.
Thank you, guys. We hope you have a great week.
Have a great week.